Welcome back to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My desk is here.
Welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. Here's your host, Scott Cowan.
All right, welcome back to this episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast. My guest today, who's being very patient, is Josh Grunig. We're just going to go with it, Josh. Josh, you were introduced to me through my daughter who does our social media outreach. She says, this sounds like a really great deli. Let's talk to this guy. So I reached out to you. You were kind enough to circle back to us. Help me out here, because the tagline's, "Oi, it's a mouthful." How do we pronounce the name of your deli correctly?
It's Zylberschtein's.
And how did you come up with that name?
So Zylberschtein is, so my mom's last name is Stein.
Okay.
And our family name was Zylberschtein. And so a lot of Jewish families that emigrated from Eastern Europe had very long Polish and German sounding names. And when they emigrated into America, their names were shortened. And so that's why there's a lot of Jewish people with the last name Silver, and there's a ton of Steins. And
Gotcha.
So I'm not necessarily related to all of those people, but you can see how, and maybe I am related. I don't know.
Maybe.
So
Well,
I did meet someone on Facebook that lives in New York, and her last name is Zylberschtein, and so I'm pretty sure I'm related to her. But
okay.
yeah, so that's where it came up the name, and I've always been really interested in Jewish delis. It's not something I grew up around. I grew up in the Bay Area, and the Bay Area has a large Jewish population, but it's very reformed, and it doesn't have the same like deli culture as maybe Los Angeles. Definitely not like the East Coast. But I've always been really interested in it, and I also just love sandwiches, like just big meaty sandwiches with cheese and that kind of thing. And so I've always been interested in this. I was really inspired by there's a place in Ann Arbor in Michigan called
No, it's your turn.
oh man. Oh, okay. There's a place in Ann Arbor called Zingerman's.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, Zingerman's. Okay, so this is like a world famous place, and what they did was I think in like the early 80s, they opened a Jewish deli. It was like two college buddies. They start this deli, and it was wildly popular. And instead of trying to open up a whole bunch of Zingerman's delis all over the place, they basically grew their business with all these other complementary businesses. So they opened a bakery, they opened a creamery, and it was, they also had like cheese. So then they opened a creamery, and, so on and so on. But what they also did was they partnered with other passionate people that knew more about that field than they did. So they would, they found someone that was like trying to start their own bakery. And they said, hey, we're going to start a bakery, and you're going to be the primary owner. We're going to have a piece of it, and you're going to provide the bread for our very busy deli. So I've always been interested in that model of growing different businesses that are all complementary to each other. And so I started my background's all in bread and baking.
Okay.
I've been a professional baker since 2006.
Oh, wow.
And I went to school for it, and then I worked all over the Bay Area. And then I moved up to Seattle, and I worked at Grand Central for a year. And then my daughter was born, and I took some time off, and then I started doing pop-ups, and I was just doing pastries and like scones and a little bit of bread. And that kind of grew into what was Standard Bakery. And Standard Bakery was primarily croissants. We did a little bit of bread loaves, but mostly croissants. And then I grew that into a pretty large wholesale business. And what I had been thinking the whole time was, well, I've got this wholesale business going. I had a little retail component to it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look for another location and open this Jewish deli that I've always been thinking about. And it didn't exactly work out that way. And I mean, essentially what happens with wholesale is you get to this point. You're trying to get to kind of an economy of scale. And then you start having to make a lot of compromises in either the quality of what you're doing or what you're charging. And you're just constantly getting squeezed in all directions. And this was like well before COVID. So before anyone even knew what supply chain meant, before that was even a word.
Right.
So instead of continuing the wholesale, we remodeled the space that we're in North Seattle, and we pivoted and became Zylberschteins. And so now we're a bakery and a deli. We built out a full kitchen in our space, and we're still really bread heavy. We make a ton of bagels. We do our own rye bread. We do babka. We do challah on Fridays. All the fresh baked stuff. But then we also smoke our own pastrami. We make chopped liver. We do knish, and we do a ton of chicken soup, like kind of a crazy amount of matzo ball soup.
Really?
So yeah, we do a lot. Like even in the summer, people still buy matzo ball soup. So,
okay.
So yeah, I mean, now we've been in business about 3 years. Yeah, it's great.
Well, dare I ask, I mean, you've been in business about 3 years, and, COVID's been 2/3 of that.
Yeah.
And you use the magic word that everybody uses is pivot, but how challenging was it for you with a new business? Yeah. And all of a sudden foot traffic was gone.
Yeah.
What, how'd you do?
Without getting too graphic, but, in those early days, I like to say, we threw a bunch of darts and see what hit the board, but really we were just throwing a bunch of crap against the wall.
Okay.
And so
fair enough.
I mean, that's what like looking back on it, right? Like no one knew what was going on. I remember at the beginning, people were like, "Oh, all right, this will just be a month." Right. Like, "Oh, we're just going to close down for a month." I remember having conversations with people like that. And I remember thinking like, yeah, I don't know about it being a month. I think this is going to drag out a little bit longer. I don't think we even have begun to understand the scope of what's happening at the beginning. Right. So, so going back to like throwing a lot of darts, and we'll stay with that analogy instead.
Okay.
So essentially we closed our dining room, but we did stay open. A lot of places in Seattle were like, we don't know what's going on. We're going to close. And we weren't really in a position to do that. Like we weren't really, we weren't in a position to say like, we're just going to close our doors for a month and wait this out. And whether or not that was stupidity or luck or what, but I think that's one of the hugest things that has really helped us is that we did stay open. Mm-hmm. And that at the beginning people were like, I can't get milk, and be like, all right, come buy a gallon of milk. Oh, we can't get yeast. Oh yeah, we got yeast. And so like our pantry stuff, I remember we were selling like 5 or 6 cases of eggs every week, like and we would just wrap them in plastic and sell it, so just like that, like we sold flour, and I think people didn't, we weren't having the issues that people were having at the grocery store. And, it wasn't that we were making a ton of money on that stuff, but the fact that we were able to say, hey, this is a place to come if you need those things. And I think what's funny too is I remember all the people like, oh, I'm doing all this home baking. And then after a month, people are like, this is a lot of work. It's kind of a lot of work to do baked goods, and be like, yep, yeah, just come on over. Come on down when you're tired of making your own bagels. It's a lot of work. So we tried that, and we also started doing home delivery. So we started something called Bagel Club. I think we started that in like May of 2020. And so you could buy anything on our menu that was like, besides our actual sandwiches, but you could buy all the components. Like you could buy pastrami by the pound and cheese. And I mean, mostly bagels we sold. But we also have a whole pastry side too. So we were selling like cookie dough and cake slices and cheesecake and all this stuff. And so, the Bagel Club for me has been the most surprising thing for COVID, because it's more popular than ever. I mean, it hasn't slowed down. It's only gotten more popular.
Really?
And I think, when I think about, it's like when I think about what is the future of restaurants, I think about what is the most convenient thing for the laziest person. Like, I mean, that's really what's happening if you think about it. If you boil it down, right? Like how lazy can I be? Like, I don't want to put pants on today. I'm just going to get my burger delivered. Like that sounds great.
Have you been talking to my son?
Oh yeah. He told me all about it.
Good kid. Don't get me wrong. Good kid. And he works for me on the on my professional side, right?
Yeah.
And he comes into the office one day and he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to order lunch. I go, where are you ordering from?" He goes, "I'm going to have McDonald's delivered."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think my rule of thumb is I don't want somebody to deliver food to me that I can go in my car to get and not get out.
Yeah.
So I don't have to wear pants in my car. I can drive to McDonald's, drive through the drive-through, come out. I don't have to pay to have somebody deliver it to me. But laziness, anyway, but tease my son. But
yeah, I mean, not to make fun of lazy people. Okay. They're entitled to their laziness, but
absolutely.
I mean, I have conversations with people. I talk to people within the food industry, and there's always like, what's going to be the next thing? And it's like the things that have happened over the last 2 years are kind of just trends that have been accelerated, that have been happening slowly, like third-party delivery, online ordering, QR codes, all that stuff. Like that stuff has been kind of creeping in. Yep. And it like out of necessity, it got accelerated really quickly. And so, so as I was joking about how I do a 5,000-year-old craft, at the same time, I do try to embrace technology as much as I can, in the sense of like, we try to find places where it's important to connect with the customer at certain junctures and touch points, but if you can speed something up or make something convenient and easy for someone, and do it in a way that is easy for an 80-year-old to do, because if it's not simple enough for an 80-year-old or a 5-year-old, most people are going to get frustrated and give up and be like, that's not even worth it, So,
okay.
Yeah.
So Bagel Club is still, it's growing still.
Yeah. I mean, we probably had like 5 people a week, and
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I really thought, after a year, everyone's going to go back to work. But, one of the things with Bagel Club, and we get this complaint a fair amount, which is, well, I came at 2:00 in the afternoon and we close at 3, and we want to be sold out at 2:00. Like, we don't want any product left over at 2:00 at that part of the day. As far as the fresh baked goods go, you should be able to get a hot sandwich until we close at 3:00. But fresh bagels, fresh loaves of bread, all that stuff, we want all that sold out. So people come at 2:00. They're like, well, I just want a dozen bagels. And I was like, okay, well, you got to come earlier. And they're like, well, I got to wait in line. I'm like, oh, well, join Bagel Club. We'll bring it to your house. And, you'd be surprised how many people that we've got to sign up that way, because they're just like, oh, well, you're going to bring it to my house? It's like, yeah. So, that kind of stuff where you're just like, oh, you feeling lazy? It's like your newspaper. You're right. Like, I don't need to walk down the block to the Walgreens to get my newspaper. Oh, they'll bring it to my door. It's like the same as that. So, and you live on the east side, right?
We're in Wenatchee.
Oh, you're in Wenatchee. Yeah. So, because like in Seattle, they have Smith Brothers. So they have like a dairy delivery on the east side like that.
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't paid attention. We moved over here in 2017, and I haven't paid. I'm sure we do.
Yeah.
I just haven't paid attention to it. But like, Smith Brothers or people have always. You're right. People have always kind of paid for that, convenience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think in a lot of ways, I feel like I've embraced those things more than other places have. And we also, I think Jewish deli food is very, it's simple, it's soul food, it's not fine dining, and it lends itself to go food. Like typically it lends itself to taking it to go. And so food that has lent itself to go food has fared pretty well during COVID. So,
okay. Did you have any restaurant training when you opened the deli other than being a baker?
Sure.
Somehow I don't believe this.
Well, when I was in the Bay Area, I worked at it was a bakery and restaurant.
Okay.
And it was part of a pretty big restaurant group. And so, I definitely I've had lots of experience being around chefs and being around food culture. But as far as like actually being a line cook, no, I have not done that. And so, I mean, some of the cooking stuff has definitely been a steep learning curve for sure. And I think what's interesting about that too is like, and I say this a lot at the new location where I'm just like, we don't know what we don't know. Like we could spend all this time being like, I can't believe it took us 2 months to figure that out. And it's like, yeah, but we didn't know that until we got in there and started doing it. We had no idea what the problems were going to be until you start, so.
And in some cases, if you knew what the problems would be, you probably wouldn't do it. You're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, too much work.
Well, and I mean, I think that there's definitely, I think that's another thing that has definitely happened during COVID, where people that, people like young people that, I don't want to say that they don't want to work hard, but they don't want to like start at nothing and work their way up and climb a ladder and just be like a dishwasher for a while. Like, I feel like that has just kind of gone away, where people that go to culinary school are like, oh, well, I'm a chef now, so I should own my own restaurant, instead of like, oh, I should go work under all these great people and actually make a bunch of mistakes on other people's dime and learn how to do this. Oh no, I'm sorry. I mean, learn all the things. Sorry. I've never done that. But
at the same time, I'm of the opinion that if somebody else is quote unquote footing the bill, that it doesn't encourage people to take risks a little bit more than if it's, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I'm just saying as if you were working for, I'm just going to pick, let's say Tom Douglas, just arbitrarily. There's a name that people listening to the show would have heard of. If you were working for Tom Douglas and you knew that your paycheck next Friday was coming in because of his restaurant enterprises, you might be willing to take a chance on something versus if you did it on your own and next Friday came and there wasn't any money in the cash register, you weren't going to get paid. So it can go both ways. You might speed up that learning curve on somebody else's dime, if you will, and they're set up to absorb that, and they get the benefits of your creativity and your effort.
I would counter with that saying, that most successful restaurants operate on consistency, and which means that they are pretty risk averse in that sense.
Okay.
And
All
so they are like, hey, go peel those 200 pounds of carrots. Like, hey, we need this salmon fillet grilled the exact same way 1,000 times. And so, and I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I also think that that's definitely a kitchen by kitchen basis. It's really kind of the culture of that particular kitchen and kind of how much ego is in there, in the sense of like, sometimes there's only one good idea and it's the chef's idea. And there's not really room for anyone else to be thinking other than just like making. And so, and then, I mean, cause this kind of reminds me of, on the flip side of that being like the pop-ups, and there's been a ton of pop-ups around Seattle, that all these restaurant pops that have happened during COVID, because a bunch of people got unemployment, but like a bunch of people were out of work, and they're like, hey, I've had this idea for this pop-up. And pop-ups are generally kind of low barrier to entry, in the sense of like, if you have a tent and a 2-burner, like you can kind of make, and especially during COVID, the health department was like nowhere to be found. So you could kind of do whatever you wanted. Like I saw some questionable sanitary practices.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to name names or anything. But fire hazards, those kind of things. But so those people are high risk takers, I would describe. But they also, I mean, you know, I would say typically people are, I don't know. It's interesting, like how you're, the idea of what you're saying too, because there are restaurants that, you know, they change their menu every week or every month. They have a completely new menu every month, and you've got like a chef de cuisine who's like, let's try, you know. So there are places that exist like that, but I would say those probably operate more in fine dining settings, and those kind of settings have definitely come more few and far between during COVID, because those type of establishments operate on ambiance, and you're paying for the dining area, you're paying for how nice those glasses are, all of those things, and none of that translates into Go Food. Right. And so, and now we're seeing this huge swing back towards like, people really do want fine dining experiences. They really do want to sit in a fancy place. They actually want to wear trousers. Like I think everyone's gotten through that period now where we're like, it's funny. Like I really make an effort, to not go outside wearing sweatpants. Like I have to consciously, like, and I walk my daughter to school some days, and it's like 2 blocks from our house. And I'm like, put some jeans on. It'll just take a minute. Like, and that's, you know, I'm not shooting shade on anyone. It like you cause now there's like all the, athleisure wear. So you could spend $400 and still be wearing sweatpants.
Right.
But you know, they're nice sweatpants. So.
They're nice sweatpants.
Great.
Oh my gosh.
I guess that, I mean, that's for another podcast, but
yeah, that's a rabbit hole. I'm going to avoid that one today with you.
Yeah. That's like a dad bod podcast.
Oh jeez.
I'm going to start that.
Yeah.
It sounds really smelly.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you an impossible question.
Yeah.
If you could only have one sandwich for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
What would it be?
Well, the first thing that pops to mind is a shrimp po' boy.
Oh.
That comes to mind, which is actually what I had for lunch today.
All right.
Because there's like a fish and chips place down on Rainier. Shout out to Emerald City Fish and Chips.
Okay.
With the very delicious shrimp po' boy.
Okay. Why a shrimp po' boy? What is it? What is it about that sandwich that?
I mean, I love fried shrimp, like breaded and fried. I mean, it's just delicious. Although I don't think I
Okay.
could eat that every day. That's like a once a month thing. Cause I feel like as I'm sitting here talking to you about it, my maybe it's just from talking about it, but like my tummy is like, really? Is that really what you want to eat every day?
That's
Like,
your answer? Really?
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not that. My body's
Maybe
speaking up on that one.
Okay.
Although, or I mean, you have to contextualize this a little bit. Is this a sandwich with no consequences?
Yeah. Well, since it's the only sandwich you're going to be able to have for the rest of your life, yes, there can be no dietary consequences.
Well, okay. I mean, that changes the nature of the question. Sorry, there's like sorry. For some reason, my daughter's iPad game decided to light up for no reason. There's also the sandwich we make, excuse me, that was awful. So we do a sandwich called the Skokie, and it's corned beef with melted Swiss and coleslaw.
Mm-hmm.
And that's super good sandwich. I really enjoy that. And I eat that once in a great while too. We also do what we call the Rachel, which is the Skokie with turkey instead of with corned beef.
Okay.
So I don't know I think I would eat that a lot. I don't know. Things with bacon. I do love bacon. Yeah, there's just so many sandwiches. I mean, there's also like in Seattle, there's Tats, and they do the Tatstrami, which is like a pastrami sandwich with coleslaw, and they like do super thin sliced pastrami. We do like thick cuts style. Ours is a little different, but they do like a hoagie roll, which is really good. I would probably eat that every day. Man, yeah.
It's an impossible question. I know.
Yeah. I mean, the way I feel about that is like the way I feel when someone's like, what's your favorite thing? Right. And I had a whole conversation with someone about this the other day about how like that is so subjective to the moment you ask it.
Right.
Like, I don't live in a world where like, I'm only ever going to have one thing. Like, what am I in the mood for? What did I eat earlier? Am I hungry? Am I, like, am I angry? Am I hangry? Am I like, in what state am I in? And like, how fit am I for the consequences of what I'm about to eat after those things? How much am I thinking about the after of like we went to barbecue for my birthday and I ate like a whole rack of ribs, which I really enjoy doing like once a year because I can do it. But then like later on, I'm like, I wish I hadn't done that. So,
right. My gosh. Yes.
So like a McRib, what about a McRib sandwich? I have to admit, I've never had a McRib sandwich, but
I don't know that I ever had. For some reason, and the story is, I mean, I can make the story up because it's mine, but going back to what I was telling you before, which about the Bourdain, when I was chauffeuring, I spent a lot of time behind the wheel of a car. And so I would eat a lot of food that was served to me through the window of that car.
Yeah.
And McDonald's I could go to McDonald's, I could order something, eat it. Next time I saw the signs, I'd be hungry again.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's not good, but I don't want to not eat it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stop. And I haven't eaten at a McDonald's in over 12 years. But that doesn't mean I haven't eaten at every other fast food place that serves food through a window, but I just don't do McDonald's. That's just, and nothing against the company. Because back in the day, I really liked their Egg McMuffins.
Yeah, I'll still eat it. That's like kind of the only thing from McDonald's I'll eat. But I can remember the last time I had that was like 2 summers ago. Because I think it was like, I don't think it was Mother's Day. I think it was like 4th of July. But I went to the McDonald's on my way to work. And I bought like 20 breakfast sandwiches and brought them into work and gave everyone them. Because when you don't have to make it yourself, regardless of what it is, it's going to
Right.
taste really good.
It's delicious,
So-
right? I was like, okay.
And there's only like 10 people working, but I have this young gentleman who will just he is a garbage disposal, so he will just eat. He would eat 10, and then everyone else would have one,
Right.
and then
right.
so
He'd still be hungry.
he'd still be hungry. So
Mhm.
we go to Cash and Carry a lot, which is like the restaurant supply store, and they
Mhm.
have every once in a while they pull out this cart of stuff that's like it's stuff, it's not gone bad, but it's not selling, or maybe it's about to go bad. So
Mhm.
and so they had this cart, and they had like 4 cases of nacho cheese, and I'm talking like the number 10 cans that
Oh my gosh.
those are like 12 pounds, 10 pounds each, and
Right.
6 of those in a case, and they had
Right.
4 or 5 of these cases on a cart. And the manager at the cash crew was like, "You want some of these? Here, just grab a case." And I was like, "I'm good." Like, it's like, "Why don't you do a nacho bagel?" And I was like, I don't know. No thanks. So I go back to work from cash carry, and I'm like, I'm telling this young gentleman, I'm saying, "Oh, they have all this nacho cheese at the cash and carry, and they're just giving it away." And he's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he did nothing. I mean, he said nothing. He literally turned around, went out the back door, got in his car, and drove to cash carry, and loaded up the back of his car with, I think, 3 cases of this nacho cheese. And then the next day, I'm like, "Gavin, did you really go over there and get all the nacho cheese?" Like he's like, "Yeah." And I ate a half a can last night. And I was like, "Did you heat it up?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "Are you okay? You look like mummified. Your skin is turning yellow." He's like, No, I'm fine." He's like sweating heavily.
Gosh.
I mean, I used to be able to eat like that when I was a teenager, because he's like 18, but and then
Yeah, I could too.
but but we love him. He's a hardworking guy. What are you gonna do? It'll catch up with him eventually.
Yeah, is he? Yeah. Wow. My gosh. All right. You named a couple of sandwiches. So let me ask you this. How do you go about naming the items on the menu? How did the Rachel come to, how did that come?
The Rachel was like a thing that someone told me about from another deli.
Okay.
I don't know where that name came from. Skokie, the Skokie. So my grandparents are from Chicago, and the city they grew up in is called Skokie. So that's how I came up with that name. We do another sandwich called the Bronx Delight, and someone reached out from LA and said, "I used to go to the Clientele Bakery and Deli in LA, and they had this sandwich, and it was corned beef, pastrami, and salami, called the Bronx Delight. You should put that on your menu." And I was like, "That sounds like a very big sandwich. I will definitely put that on the menu." And so that's how I came up with that name.
I'm looking at your menu. The Bronx Delight has 8 ounces of pastrami, 8 ounces of corned beef, beast and cleaver salami on rye with mustard.
Yeah, we got to have the mustard. So,
well,
it's like it's almost
I'm counting calories. Can we take the mustard off?
What?
Oh, I'm counting calories.
Calories. I was gonna say you get a little vegetable in there if you get the mustard, right?
Oh my gosh!
So, and we like once in a while, we don't sell that very often, right? But when we sell that, someone will come and they will eat the whole thing in one sitting, and they're like, "I drove here, I have nothing else to do today." And I was like, "I hope not. I hope not.
I hope not."
So,
do they just sleep in the corner? Can they just just sleep?
Yeah, free.
Oh gosh.
Free, like you get like a airplane pillow after to just lay down on the table.
So tell me, I'm looking at your menu. You've got a lot going on here. Let's talk breakfast first. What's your best seller for breakfast?
Well, our all-time best-selling thing that we sell is the Frankel.
Okay.
So the Frankel is pastrami, 2 eggs, cheddar on a bagel with some mayo. Some people don't like mayo. Some people that work for Zylberschteins really like mayo, and we call him the Mayo King. where he would, that's his name. His name's the Mayo King. He's earned it. He really likes mayo.
Okay.
He's changed different things out of that sandwich. There's always a lot of mayo. Like,
so the mayo's the consistent thing.
One might say too much mayo if it was me. I just like a little bit of mayo. But anyway, sorry, I digress here. So the Frankel is like our all-time favorite popular thing. We sell that from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. all day, every day. It's like,
okay.
I mean, more than even single bagels or anything. We just sell a ton of Frankels.
The Frankel goes. That's
the way it is. Yeah.
Okay.
And that place, I went to New York before I started Zylberschtein to take a bagel class and to go all over New York and try bagels. And there was a place in Brooklyn called Frankel's, and they did a sandwich like that. And so I was like, I'm definitely stealing that and definitely using the name. So that's where that name came from. So,
all right.
I mean, things are borrowed, things are stolen, things are suggested.
Well,
so.
instead of stolen, maybe we should, frame it as it's a homage.
It's inspired. You're right. That's strong. I don't want to get canceled, so you're right.
Yeah.
Inspired by
Pinehurst poutine.
Oh yeah, we sell a lot of that.
Only on weekends.
Only on weekends, yeah. That's not a business lunch dish. You're not like totally not. You're rolling up your tie like.
Has anybody ever ordered the poutine and the Bronx Delight at once?
No, I mean that's enough food for a family for a week. So yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, so I have to ask my standard question. You're on your menu, you've got drip coffee.
Yeah.
Are you a coffee fan?
Big time.
All right, this is gonna be a tough one because it's Seattle, and I've tried a lot of coffee in Seattle. But where's a great place to get a cup of coffee in Seattle? You can name your place if you'd like, but where's a great coffee shop in Seattle?
Well, I mean, we use Broadcast Coffee, and so we use their beans, and that is arguably one of the best in Seattle. And I would also recommend Herkimer Coffee that's in Greenwood. They make extremely good coffee. But I'll tell you, Mike, if you really want to have a cup of coffee and you really know what's up, you just order an espresso with some bubbly water. That's the purest form of coffee that you can have from, like, if someone's a coffee roaster and you if you can speak their language, and that's what you order. Like, you just get, because when I go to places, I'm like, or you just have a black drip. And I mean, that's my go-to. Yeah, for sure. But I would say those two places.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Boy, I feel like we're not doing the menu justice here, but you got a lot of bagels, a lot of loaves of bread. What's your putting you on the spot, your favorite bread?
I'd say probably the rye bread.
Okay.
Or I love the pumpernickel bagels. We only do those once a week. Okay. Those are super popular, and it's hard to say. I mean, like a lot of days I'll go for a bialy with like a fried egg on top. That's where it's at for me. So,
wow.
It really just depends, like I haven't been at Zylberstein's a whole lot, and usually I'll go and get a 15th Ave, and that's a breakfast sandwich with bacon, eggs, cheese on a croissant, and it's got a little bit of greens in it, but it's like the bacon and the croissant together, just that's where it's at. That's where it's at? Yeah. I mean, both of those sandwiches are really good. I mean, to be honest with you, like I don't eat a lot of red meat, and when you are smoking and cutting thousands of pounds of pastrami on a regular basis, it doesn't make you want to eat it. I was gonna say, do you lose kind of the fanboy aspect of it, if you will? For sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay. But I still love making it, and I love serving. I love seeing other people enjoy it for sure. Right. But dealing with it on the daily basis is okay. Yeah, I mean, I love croissants. And we used to just swim in butter. Like when we were wholesaling and we were going through, oh man, we were going through we were going through about 180 pounds of butter a day for croissant. So that was like 5 or 6 cases of butter every single day. And you're like, go home and you're finding butter like behind your shoulder. Like how did that get there? I don't know. But it doesn't make you want to eat a croissant. And now I don't make croissant that much. And I enjoy having a good croissant more often. So,
okay. What's next for the deli? What's the crystal ball say?
Well, I opened a new location in Seward Park called Muriel's, and Seward Park has a big Jewish population. So, and I'd say like twice a week, we get a call at Zylberschtein's like, are you guys kosher? And be like, no, we're not kosher. And so I knew that there was a market for doing a kosher business. So Muriel's is kosher. We're a kosher dairy restaurant and a parve bakery. So parve basically means that it's food that can be eaten with either meat or cheese. So it's for us, it's challah, bagels, rye bread, and bialys. We do bialys every day. So that's our back room where we do the baked goods. And then in the front, we do, essentially vegetarian food. So it's a lot of fresh vegetables, grilled cheese sandwiches, cheesy toast with eggs, lots of avocado toast. And so it's all meat free, but we use all kosher cream cheese and cheese and all that stuff. So that's definitely that's been my life the last 4 months now. We opened January 20th. So
oh wow.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been a minute.
So I'm on your website for Eat at Muriel's, where you talk about your inspiration.
Yeah.
And I just want to read this because I think this is really kind of cool. My grandmother was Zylberschtein. She loved life with 2 open arms, always ready for a nosh, and loved a cold beer.
Yeah.
Somehow, I just think that's that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and I should mention also, so Muriel's, we are a partner with Chuck's Hop Shop. So our space, our space is inside of Third Place Books, and Chuck's does the beer and we do the food. And so like Chuck approached me about this project, and when it came along, that was my first thought, was like, I instantly thought of my grandmother who loved beer. She really liked like Corona. She liked Mexican beers. Like before Mexican lagers were so fashionable. Like, right. But she liked a light, like she'd be down with like a Corona and a slice of beer. That was her.
Okay.
That's like, I have that so seared into my mind when I was like, I must have been like 13 or 14, but I called my grandma and I'm like, okay, we're coming back. We're getting food. What do you want? She's like, bring me a 6-pack and a pepperoni pizza. And I was like, okay, that's what I'll have.
I'll have that too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Help me out here, because as you know, before we hit record and I was butchering names, but you're going to be, according to this, you're going to be certified. And I'm not going to even try to pronounce.
Oh, you mean Muriel's? Sorry.
Yes.
So Muriel's is Pas Yisrael, which is the parve bakery part of it. And it's Halav Yisrael. And so for the restaurant, so it's kosher dairy. And so essentially what that means is Halav Yisrael is kind of the strictest form of kosher dairy that you can source. And it essentially means that there is Jewish supervision from the moment the dairy is produced from the cow to the moment it gets to the consumer, essentially.
Wow. So
like every stage, there is a Jewish person overseen by a rabbi who's monitoring the quality of that product.
So farm to table, if you will, is having Jewish supervision, so how do you, walk me through this, because like, where are you getting your milk from?
Most of
I
it
mean,
comes.
it's not Dairy
Most of
Gold.
it comes from East Coast. Yeah, we use a kosher distributor.
Wow. Okay.
Some of the cheese comes from like Wisconsin. Some of it comes from New York. So there is a larger demand for the kosher stuff on the East Coast, and so that's where a lot of the products are made.
Okay.
We actually don't do a lot of importing. Like most of the stuff is done domestically as far as the dairy goes.
Okay.
And it's interesting, like with Zylberschteins too, because we have always put a lot of work into using locally sourced stuff, because it's just usually of the best possible quality when it's fresh, and also like when you know the producer that's making it. A lot of the small producers, like I know them personally, and a lot of those relationships have really benefited and not been hurt by supply chain issues. So because we're like, hey, we use flour from the Skagit Valley, it's like there's no boat in between us and Skagit Valley. There's just a truck, like, so it's, I mean, a lot of that has kind of benefited us, but that is definitely a big concern moving forward, because, flour prices are supposed to go up about 30% in the next 12 months because of, essentially because of demand and because of the war in Ukraine. So because there isn't that supply in Europe, there's going to be this demand for American wheat, and it's just going to drive up the cost of everything. So
I did read an article, and it won't change pricing, but I did read that the wheat crop here in Washington this year is supposed to be larger than normal. So, not that that's going to offset much.
I don't think so.
So, yeah. Well, so Murray's is open. Where did I see that at? So you close on Mondays and Tuesdays. You're open Wednesdays through Friday. So you really only open. It's only open 3 days a week.
No, we're open Wednesday through Sunday.
Now I'm gonna give you a hard time because nobody can see this, but I'm gonna point here to the website where it says closed on Saturday and Sunday.
Is that on our website?
Yes, sir.
That's not good. Is that on Google or on our actual website?
No, this is on eatitmuriel's.com. Main page. At the bottom. Right below, you got a few menu items here.
Jeez.
See?
I failed.
And here's the map.
I believe you. I just don't like it.
Hey, at least we found out now, right? And you're wondering, like, how come Saturdays and Sundays are slow?
I'm so mad. It explains so much. Dude, what's up with that? Well, that's easy to fix. I can sit here and fix this while we're talking. I'm not going to. I'm just.
But you could. So that's the good news is it's easy.
Well, who scrolls to the bottom of the page anyway, right?
I'm old. And
I want to see every corner of this website, every inch of it.
Is it responsive, mobile friendly?
No, it's not.
So it's.
Well, with Muriel's, so we do QR code ordering, and I've talked to several people about this. And the thing with QR code ordering is like, it is good and bad. One of my issues with it is like, on a mobile device, it's really hard to like make a menu look good, and I have not seen a place solve this problem, because we use a POS, like we use Square, that integrates with your mobile device. And so, I can't even think of a good example, but it's like, if there was a way to make like a fold out printed menu on a mobile format somehow, I don't know, someone will come up with it. But
when they implant the chips in our head, that we just have the menu in front of us here virtually and we're looking at it, augmented reality or whatever that's going to be.
Well, I mean, food prices are going up so high. I'll take some augmented food. Sounds good to me. I just had a burger.
Yeah. So not that we're trying to turn this into a business podcast, but from costs of doing business, have you noticed a drastic increase across the board?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. I mean, I think one of the challenges, there's always been a new set of challenge, right? And so, like, for instance, today we just noticed that one of our vendors charges us $2 more for our fuel charge. So they just added that on. And it's, you know, I mean, it's like $2, right? It's like, oh, who's going to notice? But it's like those little things that just keep adding up and kind of chipping away. We are being really, we're being really careful about our pricing, and we're changing our pricing all the time. I actually I heard a thing on, they interviewed this guy on the radio I think he was like in New Jersey or Philadelphia or something. And he has a pizza place, and he's like, you know, pizza places they're on the lower end of price points. And he's like, he essentially said like he's having to change his prices so often that he just stopped doing a printed menu. Because people are mostly ordering online, and he's just constantly increasing his prices like a week to week basis because of how the prices are changing. So, yeah, so that's the world we live in now. But, you know, I think I mean, the other thing that he said, which I thought was interesting, was, you know, people, a lot of people are kind of being forced to or choosing to eat out less and cooking for themselves a little bit more. Not all the time, but, you know, they were like talking to these different customers, and they're like, you know, I used to eat out 5 to 6 days a week, and now it's like 3 days a week because it's just too much money. And so, I mean, it's impacting people at the grocery store too. So it's kind of like people are having to make harder decisions about what kind of stuff they can buy. And once in a while we get a knucklehead that complains about our high prices. And then I have to explain to them, we're not ripping anybody off. We're just trying to stay in business. You know, like, I'm glad you decided to come crawl out of your hole and apparently you have never watched or heard the news from anywhere or heard the word supply chain. You've never heard this term. But yes, send me all your vitriol. I want all of it. Just give me a 10-page Yelp review of vitriol. I would love that. So,
yeah, we could go down.
I'll just put a period on that.
Yeah. How has Muriel's been received since this is the newest project?
Oh, it's been great. People love the food. We definitely have been tinkering a lot, and you know, and I was thinking about what I said earlier about how, you know, we don't know what we don't know, you know,
right?
And that's part of opening a new business. I mean, I had a much more clear idea of how this was going to go because of Zylberstein's and because of having a little bit more restaurant experience. But I always like to describe how it's a dialogue and how you have a community of people. They want to eat food, and you have to figure out what they want to eat. And so you can offer them some things, and then they're going to communicate with you, and then you make some adjustments, and then you like put some more stuff out there, and then you say, oh, do you like this? And they're like, yeah, I don't really like that. And so we've changed the menu every month, if not a couple times. We've changed it every 2 weeks, where we're just like, okay, that's not selling. Stop doing it. Like I feel like the window for accepting loss or waste is so tiny at Muriel's now compared to at Zylberstein's, because when you're open for a while, you have things that sell and that are popular, and it's hard to take those things away. And so it's been just a much quicker turnaround of like, oh, people don't want that, let's get rid of it. Like, we don't have room for that.
Give me an example of something that you thought would be I love asking these, you know, what was a quote unquote failure, because we learn something from it all the time. So what was something you thought would be well received and it just wasn't?
No, I just saw that a couple minutes ago on Instagram, where it was like, it's not a failure unless you ignore the data.
Okay.
You know, and I was like, yeah, that's a good attitude to have, right? I mean, so we Well, so initially we were open until 7 p.m. because we're part of this beer bar. We thought, let's have like lots of fried stuff and more like bar snack stuff. And, we'd get into like happy hour and it wasn't really selling. And so it kind of turned out that people wanted like dinner. They wanted like sit down dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And so people would say, oh, can we get, a lot of people were like, where's the meat? Where's the meat? Like, I want a Reuben with pastrami. And I'd be like, okay, a Reuben, that's, I think, the funniest thing to me, because a Reuben is arguably the most iconic Jewish deli food that you could think of. That's what I always think of, right? And it is the most unholy, unkosher thing that someone could eat, because you have red meat with cheese in a sandwich. That is like, that breaks a lot of rules. So, which I think is really funny. And then a lot of that having to do with the fact that like Jewish deli culture in New York, where it really grew and exploded, that Jewish deli culture, as we know in America, was built for non-kosher Americans, non-Jewish people. Like, it wasn't built for kosher observant people. And I think that's what's really interesting about that. So, I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but I love that, like, oh yeah, that is the most Jewish deli thing, but a kosher person will not touch that and eat, so, so back to your actual question that I will eventually answer. So we were like, oh, people want bar snacks. And it turned out people just wanted dinner. And the thing is, like, to operate a food business and do 3 meal periods, essentially over a 12-hour period, the staffing that is needed to do that is very, very challenging. And so
I can imagine. Yeah.
So we weren't making enough money at night to justify having the staff to stay open. And so, so initially we were open 8 to 7. And then we weren't really getting an 8 a.m. crowd. So we started opening at 9. And then we were like, okay, let's just do lunch. Like, this is becoming the neighborhood lunch place. That's we're making the most money between 11 and 1. So now we're just going to focus on that. Like, we're just going to focus on that thing that people are telling us they want, which is lunch. And then eventually maybe we can build it out to doing dinner. We are trying to get a lot more of the breakfast crowd, so I guess to answer your question, it's like, we just are focusing on what works and what doesn't, and responding very quickly. And so, like, we were doing these carrot fritters, and they were super delicious. They were like, it was just carrots with a little bit of egg and chickpea flour, and we'd fry them up, and then it had this delicious like yogurt dukkha sauce. And dukkha is a spiced nut mix, and ours had hazelnuts and pistachio, and then it's got like cumin and lemon, and it was super delicious. But they took way too long to make. They were labor intensive, and they didn't sell great. And then they also took a really long time to fry. So like a regular basket of fries takes like 5 to 6 minutes, and these carrot fritters were taking 10 to 12 minutes.
Ooh.
And so, like, it would take 30 minutes to get someone an appetizer. I mean, because that was like a starter, so that was something where we're like, well, this tastes good, but it's not super popular. I held on to that dish, I think, a little bit longer, because I just really enjoyed eating it. But eventually it was like, well, this is just causing more problems than it's solving. So.
Do you have, you've just opened a restaurant that's been open 5 months or so at the time that we're recording this, still in its early stages, still, I'm guessing you're still, finding your way, if you will, so this question might be challenging, but what's the future look like? Are you going to do you want to keep expanding? Do you want to kind of broaden and oh my God, the Ann Arbor company. Well, help me out. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Oh, Zingerman's. Yeah.
do you want to be more like them and broaden the foundation, if you will, and partner with other people and bring things in, or what do you think you want to do down the road?
Oh, I don't know.
Perfectly.
I mean, to be honest with you right now, it's to get Muriel's out of the red, to be, I mean, we're not like hemorrhaging money, but we're not making any money. Like it's really, really tight. And it's hard to see. I mean, people talk about, oh man, it's hard to be finding people to work in the food industry now. And it's hard to find people in service. And that's 100% true. And the there's there's a bevy of reasons that has caused that. And what I would say is like, it gives me pause to say, oh, I want to open up a whole bunch of locations, because who's going to work there? And for instance, I will tell you what happened today. Like at Muriel's, my primary baker got COVID. So she's out. We don't have a replacement for her. And then as I'm like trying to shift my attention onto that at Muriel's, my other baker at Zylberschtein's called me and said, oh, I broke my hand doing kickboxing. And I just went to get an x-ray, and yeah, I shattered my hand in 2 places. So I'm not coming to work tomorrow. And so and we don't have a replacement for those people. I mean, other than me, you're looking at me like I'm the replacement to fill in for those 2 people. The problem is that I have not yet figured out how to duplicate myself or to be in 2 places at once. So I can only be in one place tomorrow to cover these 2 problems. So, and this is like a very common issue where you're like, there's no room to have extra people, right? But then you don't have room if you lose one of those people either. You don't have a lot of wiggle room. And so, so it gives me pause to say, I don't know. I think today I would say I cannot see past my hand to like
completely fair
what the future holds. I do know that people love bagels, and Seattle is having a bagel moment, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to have a lot more bagels in Seattle, and that I'm not going to be the one to do all of it, and it's been really cool to be living in Seattle, and there's like 5 or 6 bagel places that did not exist 3 years ago. And it's a pretty great moment to be in a city with a bagel scene. And I know everyone, and everyone's like super cool. And, and so, I just hope that continues. So.
Okay. Well, this next question gets us away from what you do professionally to what you do in your off time. But given you just told me that you're down 2 bakers tomorrow, the off time. Okay. But what do you and the family like to do when you're not filling in for staff?
Oh, well, we got it. We got a puppy in December. So we go to we like to go to the dog park in Magnolia, or not, in Magnuson Park. We have to go to the big dog park there. Okay. And then right now it's like, if it's nice outside, we just try to be outside. So, my kids are 5 and 8. And so if it's not raining and we can spend most of the day outside, we've been doing a little bit of tennis lately. So my 8-year-old's kind of getting into tennis, and I am flirting with the idea of trying to go play pickleball on a regular basis, but
it is the state sport.
It is. Have you interviewed a pickleball
I have not.
pro?
I have not.
Is there a pro pickleball?
I have not interviewed a pickleball pro. Do you know one?
I mean, I literally a month ago learned that it was the state sport. So I'm not the person to ask. I will tell you though that like every tennis court I drive by seemingly lately has pickleball courts on it. So
interesting.
And I did look at a meetup group of pickleball people. So, and there's like leagues and stuff, but That's as far as I've gotten. That's what I'm saying.
That's
I
as far as
flirted
you've
with the idea.
Okay.
I would very much like to do that this summer. So,
Okay. What type of puppy did you get?
oh, she's a blue heeler and German Shepherd.
So low energy, just calm. Yeah.
Who has low energy dogs?
Yeah.
I mean, who has a low energy puppy?
Yeah, we don't. We got our puppy in April, and it's a Bernese Mountain Dog.
Oh my God.
Which is,
You like pain.
Yeah. Well, about 25 years ago, I had one, and he was wonderful, mellow, chill, and I forgot the whole puppy thing. This guy, we just weighed him. He's 3 months old, and he's 36 pounds.
Oh my God.
And I think we're going to put a saddle on him so our cat can ride him around.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he is just relentlessly busy.
Yeah.
Until he doesn't want to do something, and then he just lays down and won't move.
Yeah.
So that's what I do in my spare time right now. Is
they're really fun dogs.
around.
I actually looked at getting one. What's funny about our puppy was like, I wanted a bigger dog. My wife really loves blue heelers. And I've always had, like, I had a golden retriever when I was a kid. I had a black lab. So I've always liked kind of medium, larger dogs. And we couldn't quite like agree. And I actually was like, I would love to get a German Shepherd. I love German Shepherds. They're wonderful family dogs. This would be great. And then we find this blue heeler German Shepherd mix. And it was like, this is great. And she's only like, she's almost 6 months and she's about 31 pounds. So
okay.
I feel like she's kind of slowed down. Like, I think she's going to be like 55, 60 pounds at max. So we'll see. Not 160 pounds like your beast of a dog you're about to have.
He'll probably be 130 when he's full grown.
My cousin has a Burmese Mountain Dog, and I'm like, I mean, I'm assuming you have a lot of space at your house.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so that's my cousin has like a little tiny backyard, and I'm like, your dog is going to eat you. Your dog will eat you alive. You shouldn't do that. Don't subject a dog to this, but that's okay. I would say that to her face.
My friend has a 3-year-old burner.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted another one, but I was never gonna make a big effort to do it. And so I just said to him, I said, hey, if the breeder that you got, his name is Otto, his dog's name is Otto. If the breeder that you got Otto from ever has an extra in the litter, just let me know. So I get this text message. Do you want to buy a dog? This is like 2 years later. Then and I go, what are you talking about? He goes, well, the breeder, she's got some extras this time because some people backed out because of, fears of the economy, things like that. And we're getting one too. And so I go, you're going to have, so he's got a puppy. We have a puppy. And I was talking to him today, literally on the phone, and we were kind of comparing war stories. And I felt a little better about what we're going through. It's like, oh my gosh. But, he's fun. Don't get me wrong. So let's wrap up with my get out of jail free question, because we could go on for a long time. What didn't I ask you that I should have?
Well, what I always think about in moments like this, when I have challenging days, and for some, I all day today, I was looking forward to having this podcast with you. And I was like, I'm hopefully, sometimes I really hit the wall at 8:00 and I'm just like, but tonight I was like, I got my kids organized. I was like, listen, I'm getting on this thing at 8:00, like no messing around, or at least go to your room, leave me alone. They could be screaming bloody murder up there, but I got headphones on. So no,
right.
But, I think days like this, I remind myself of why I'm in this business, which is that I love to feed people. That's what gets me up every day. And although I may not be eating pastrami every day, like the 90-year-old grandmother that comes and is like, give me the really fatty cut. Don't skimp me on the fat on that corned beef. Like, give me the really fatty corned beef cut. And she'll like, we used to have people would come in and she'd look over at the cutting board and be like, more fat, put more fat in that corned beef sandwich. Like, this might be the only corned beef sandwich she eats for a year. So it's got to be right. It's got to be the like the proper sandwich. And so, I mean, part of feeding people and nourishing people is really the foundation of what I enjoy doing. And that gives me a lot of fulfillment. And that's why I continue to do this business, because when I start thinking about all the impossibles and all of the reasons why I shouldn't be doing this, like that's what it brings it back to me and people's connection with that food. And so, and we have a lot of conversations about what are we not doing at Muriel's that we did at Zylberstein's. And a big part of that is talking about the story, connecting with people, and the way that you like, you know, I always love that scene in Ratatouille where the chef eats the ratatouille and he's transported back, or the food critic, and he's transported back to being a kid. And food to me is 100% like that. Like it is transportive, it is magical, it is nourishing. And so if I can like even just get a little bit of that pixie dust once in a while, and like once in a while just connect with someone like that, then it's all worth it for me. So
all right, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love that. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening.
100%.
Well, depending on when people are listening to this, but folks, we're recording this in the evening, so anyway. But thank you for making that happen.
Of course.
I don't envy you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to be in two places at once. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, you can't call it in. Can't make bagels over the phone. Keep trying.
No.
But,
I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to make them in one and transport them to the other? Is that what you're going to have to do?
100% not, because we have one kosher business and one non-kosher business. So they're separate. They're like, no, I mean, no, we're going to be fine. We'll be fine.
Okay.
We do have another baker and we have people that can help. And so,
okay.
No, we'll be fine. So, I mean,
well,
my broken,
next time I get to Seattle,
yeah, go ahead.
Next time I get to Seattle, I'm going to check you guys out.
Yeah, come on by, man.
This looks the menu. I think my arteries kind of like shuddered when I was looking at it a little bit, but you know what the heck?
Yeah, just clear your day planner. It's fine.
Yeah. So, can I take a nap in the back room or something?
Well, you can have, I'll tell you a funny story about that, because when I went to New York, I went to Kat's Diner. I went to Kat's and I ordered a Reuben, and I sat down, and there were a bunch of places I wanted to go eat. And so I ordered this Reuben and I ate half of it. And then I was sitting, I ended up befriending these two people, and they were like from Argentina or Brazil or something. And I was like, do you want the other half of my sandwich? Obviously this was before COVID. And we were chatting and the guy was like, what do you mean? And he like, I'm not going to say anything bad, but he ordered a bagel and lox, which is not the place to get a bagel and lox. No shade on Kat's, but if you go to Kat's, you need to get pastrami. Like, so I gave him half my sandwich because there were like 3 other places within walking distance that I wanted to go check out. And I knew also that if I ate that whole sandwich, I would be done. I would just like lay down on the counter. So know your limits, bring a friend, eat half a sandwich. So,
well, let me ask you, I'm going to ask you this one last question. So there's these iconic deli names that we've heard of.
Yeah.
New York and LA. Once again, maybe what's your favorite?
My favorite deli?
Yeah.
Well, so the place I told you about in LA, the Clientele bakery, and I went there with my grandparents a few times when I was a kid. So I would say I don't have the breadth of experience at all these different delis, but I like going to that deli because they have this huge bakery. It was like one of those places, like the old Italian bakery. You walk in and there's just cases and cases of cookies, just piles and mounds of everything. And that's like, and they do the like rainbow cookie. So I would say that place in LA.
Okay.
So I don't even know if it's still there. It may not even be there, and then someone told me about this place in Palm Springs called Sherman's that I've never heard of. And it's like real old school and it's all kosher. Like, you should go check this place out. And I was like, sure. If I'm going to go on vacation, it's not going to be the desert. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you so much for making this happen. I really
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
It was great talking with you, Scott.
All right.
All right.
Join us next time for another episode of the Exploring Washington State podcast.